Hey friends, welcome to the next I Love You More group study. This week we're talking about I Love You More and my disappointment, and my friend Ashley Wells is here with me today. Ashley is a elementary school teacher. She teaches music to every grade in elementary school. She is married to Greg Wells, obviously, and they have 3 kids named Joel, Hudson, and Ben, right? Ashley actually just had Ben. How old is Ben?
He's almost 3 months.
So props to Ashley for being here with me today. And she is juggling a lot, but I'm so thankful for her presence here. She likes to sing, and she loves to watch home makeover shows.
Like cooking shows and HGTV and that kind of thing.
Like all of us like to do.
Right.
I mean, I personally like Chip and Joanna Gaines, but you're more prone to cooking shows.
Right.
Yep.
Food, baking, things that I'm not good at, but I like to watch other people do.
Yeah. Well, we're going to interview Ashley in just a few minutes, but I wanted to just give you a little bit of an intro for this chapter, I Love You More Than My Disappointment. So disappointment is pretty much something we're going to all experience. And I wanted to start today off with a quote that I put in the book. It's on the very first page. Hudson Taylor said, "We will all have trials. The question is not where the pressure will come, but where the pressure will lie. Will it come between us and the Lord, or will it press us ever closer to his breast?" So here's the thing. We all experience things with the Lord. Maybe it's unforgiveness, maybe it's disappointment. There are a lot of things in our life that can take us away from our relationship with God, or we can draw near to him so that he can help us overcome. And that's what we're talking about in this chapter of I Love You More Than My Disappointment. We're talking about Mary and Martha and how they were disappointed when Jesus didn't come to help them with Lazarus. We're talking about the disciples when they were rowing across the Sea of Galilee and he didn't come to them immediately, but they had to go through a storm. So what do we do when we encounter disappointment? In our workbook this week, in our group study, we learned that we are not forgotten, that God will always see us, even if we don't feel like he does in our disappointment. We learned also that we're not alone. And then the last thing that we learned specifically is that God is able to give us the perspective that we need to overcome whatever obstacle is keeping us disappointed. But we have to go to him to help us to do that. So we're going to talk to Ashley today and just ask her a few questions so maybe she can give you some insight as to how to overcome your disappointment. Ashley, what would you say your first takeaway is from this group study?
All right, so from this chapter specifically, I would say that learning to be okay with your disappointments, learning to not really wallow in those, but to learning to be okay with it because God's plan may be greater than what we see as something that's holding us down.
Yeah. One of the points is that a lingering situation is a learning opportunity. And most of the time when I am lingering in a situation, I want that situation to be over. I don't want to learn in it. I want God to just take that situation away. Yeah. And I know you were telling me about Joel and how you drove him to the ice cream store one time, and what happened?
Okay, so, he's 4.5, so, everything is a big thing. And, we say, we're going to go get ice cream tonight, and we work really hard to get in the car, and, it's a growing expectation, and we get there, and the ice cream shop is closed. And he doesn't know how to deal with that disappointment. And, it just sticks, and, we have to, really work to get him to see that it's okay, and that we can find something else to do, or that there may be something better for him. So
yeah, Jacob did that when he was little. I remember dropping him off at preschool, and he would ask me what the plans for the day were. I would tell him all of my plans, but life doesn't always happen the way that you want it to. So sometimes when I would pick him up, I'd have to change the plans, and he is not okay with changing plans.
Yes.
And so when I changed those plans, it's like he thought the world was going to end. And I had to calm him down and just say, sometimes plans don't work out and they're going to have to change, and you're going to have to learn how to trust me.
Right.
I feel like we have to do that with God all the time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We don't know what's going on. we have a plan. He's not going according to our plan. And so we have to trust his plan instead of getting all mad and taking things over, which is usually what I want to do.
Me too.
God, this isn't how it's supposed to be. So let me tell you what you needed to do here. Yeah.
Right.
What would you say that you learned the most about the character of God from this chapter?
So it was nice to read that he sees my disappointment. He knows, he understands, he's felt that pain before, like on the cross, and he does not want us to stay there. He doesn't want us to stay in that disappointment, and that he really just cares for us so much. And that I see that with our family. Just had a situation to where we moved. We moved away from the comfort of our family, not that far, but far enough to where I had left my comfort zone. And I'm learning right now that God doesn't want me to, stay in the uncomfortable feeling of what could have been. But he's really trying to show me that, like, I have so many greater things out there for you, and I see what you're going through, and it's gonna be okay.
Yep. And when you guys moved here, I know you got a job right away, but it wasn't the same grade.
Right.
There was a big learning curve for you
Yes.
when you got here. So not only are you guys moving to a new place, new people, your kids had to find new friends.
Right.
You get a new job, and that new job isn't what you're used to.
Yeah.
Your life is completely different, and that could have been a crash of disappointment for. I'm sure you experienced some.
Yeah, well, it's funny hearing you say that out loud right now, because God provided all of those things for us, but still I was like, oh, but it's not what it used to be, kind of thing.
Where's my family? I used to be able to drop my kids
Right.
out. Yep.
But, like, he's providing all of those things. Like, why am I not seeing that kind of thing?
I think, and it was a stressful time. So even what I've heard is that good stress is also stress. So even though you guys were moving, I feel like you were excited about moving. You got here, and it was good, but there were stresses involved, good and bad, that you were having to figure out.
Yeah.
And then you get pregnant.
I know.
Right?
Yes.
And you guys have a baby. So sometimes I think we get disappointed when God isn't active, and it just seems like he's staying, or he's just
That
making us
lingering
wait.
feeling. Right.
Yeah. I was at a Beth Moore conference one time, and I remember she said something about, in the Psalms, there's a verse about waiting on the Lord. There's tons of them about waiting on the Lord. But in this specific one, she said the word wait is a verb. And it's not meant to, like, sit in the closet and twiddle your thumbs. It's an expectant waiting. Yeah. And I think sometimes we can get disappointed because we think that God's just putting up a stop sign and saying, and like, putting all of our hopes and dreams on this shelf over here, and we're never going to get to it. But really, pretty much, it might not be the timing.
Yeah.
There might be something we need to learn. And really, pretty much, sometimes we're not ready. And that's hard. We're not ready for what he has to give to us.
I see that, yes.
But what would you say that you learned the most about yourself in this chapter?
Okay, so you wrote about seeing our disappointment in two lights. You could see it through the lens of a microscope, to where it is just focused. And I even like the idea of, like, looking down, because it kind of takes your mind away from everything. But looking down into the microscope and only focusing on your disappointment, and missing out on so many other things, compared to using a wide angle lens, to where you can truly, honestly, take your focus off yourself and see what's out there and see the greater things that God could have for you.
I agree. Did you ever take chemistry?
Yes.
So you get a sample, right?
Yes.
And you put it on a little Petri glass, and then you put the little cover on top. And when you look through that microscope, you're only seeing, like, a microscopic sample of a bigger thing.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So I think that happens in our lives when we get disappointed. There's this one thing on the timeline of our whole entire life, and we're judging God's character by one situation, right?
Yes.
Instead of looking at the wide angle view. And I told you this funny story in the workbook. I also talk about this, where my brother and I had this crazy idea to climb up in a magnolia tree. And we climbed up the branches, and we were hiding. You couldn't see us at all because magnolia trees are so thick. And we were living in Atlanta, and so people would walk their dogs, And it was so funny because they would walk by, and my brother and I would make howler monkey noises. Have you ever heard of the howler monkey?
Can you do it now?
I can.
Okay, please
I can.
do.
It's like their necks blow up, and it's like whoop, 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 whoop. And then at the end, I can't do it because it's like this loud screech. It's so loud, you don't want to hear it. But we would do that in the tree, and when people walked by, they had their dogs, and they would look up in the tree, and they didn't know what was up. I'm sure they thought it was kids, because surely there's not howler monkeys in Atlanta. But they couldn't see, but we could see it all. We could see them, we could see them coming, we could see them leaving, we could see all of their expressions, but they couldn't see us at all. And I think that sometimes God has a bigger perspective than we do,
Right.
and he knows where we're headed, but it's just hard for us to believe that,
Yes.
you know?
Absolutely.
Anyway,
Yeah.
what would you say, last question for you, what would you say that your takeaway was for, what did you learn about how to apply this chapter to the people around you? And when I talk about the people around you, I'm talking about, it could be your family, it could be your kids, it could be your friends, it could be unbelievers, because I think sometimes we forget them,
Right.
you know? So unbelievers that are looking at you going through disappointment, your kids looking at you going through disappointment, your friends looking at you going through disappointment. What is your takeaway? How would you reflect who God is to them in the midst of your disappointment?
I think that I would like to be able to share with women in particular, because I think we're hard on ourselves sometimes, that we can hold ourselves back from really, really good things by really focusing on our disappointment and not seeing them through a broader or a wider lens. We can keep ourselves from thriving in our relationship with God, even though we're still saying, like, God, I love you, and I know you're there, but not being able to go deeper because we are not being active in our waiting, or being sad, or having a pity party in our disappointment. I'm saying that because I've done that. I do that sometimes.
Do you have an example that you could share, or is that too hard?
I mean, I would even think, like, with our family's move, like, I can think of times when I would just sit there and just kind of want to cross my arms and just be like, this is not fair. This is not what I wanted. And so just trying to, I don't think I want to relate to other people who think that nothing good is going to come of things, but really trusting and believing and knowing that God has good for us. He wants to free us of that and to grow deeper and closer to Him.
I think we have a tendency to want to pout when we don't have to.
Right.
So I remember when I used to get disappointed, I would sing this silly song. Nobody likes me, everybody hates me, guess I'll go eat worms. And big slimy worms, I don't really know.
Juicy something.
Juicy
right.
worms, and how they wiggle and squirm. And I would just pout. And why would I sing that song to myself over and over again? Because I think it just made me feel good to feel sorry for myself.
Yeah.
And so somehow pulling ourselves out of that self-pity,
Yeah.
that is loving Jesus more in our disappointment, is saying, there's really no reason that I have right now to pout. And I think remembering that there are people in the world suffering way more than we are,
That's huge.
is one way to get out of that.
I know.
And to think about Jesus, and everything that he went through. So, well, Ashley, I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I know that you made a big sacrifice to be here with me today, and I know that all of you probably made huge sacrifices to be at this group study tonight. I know it's not easy to continually get together and to talk about hard things, but I know that God is going to do some great things in your heart as you talk tonight in your group about how to love Jesus more in your disappointment. So I can't wait to see you next week for the group study of I Love You More.